Commissioner Shelton, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Like to welcome everyone to the August 6th, 2025 Cottonwood Heights Planning Commission work meeting. First of all, I'll start off by reviewing the business agenda. We have project CUP 25001, which is a continuation of a discussion regarding setbacks at Gaverny Master Plan Community, and then the consent agenda. So we'll go ahead and start. And just for reference, we have Commissioner Shelton online.
Okay, let me share the screen for PowerPoint. Hey, working. What happened? It's very slow. I don't know. Okay. Okay, so the summary for this project is CUP-25-011 and the action required for the conditional use approval to amend the Giovanni PUD. Applicant is Brent Johnson, and the address is around approximately like 3505 East Giovanni Parkway. Zoning is the R1A single family. And this item is continued from the July 16th, 2025 meeting. So the purpose of this memo is like during the continue from last meeting, July 16, 2025, Commissioner have some concern and asking some question. Want the staff to double check with the fire and building department to make sure they this kind of setback reduce meet the building code and the fire codes. So after the meeting, the applicant and zoning department meet with the building and fire department to discussion and kind of deep discussion on what exactly what they trying to include in this project. So here's the three questions that last time the commissioner concerned. The first one's the shed is gonna be included in this amendment or not, and what's the kind of like shed, the definition for the city for the zoning code. And the second question about the fire code concern is that reduce the setback, like no setback between the structure, and also the side yard thing is safety or not meet the current code or not. And the last question is that fairness to the other outside Giovanni other R1A zone or not? So during the meeting with all the departments, the applicant decided to remove the shed from this CUP application. Now they just gonna want to focus on the open air structure like a pergola and a gazebo. There's no any other closed structure will be included in this project. And for the fire code safety things, fire department say if the accessory structures, the footing and foundation, any wall, they're not located in the side yard area, fire department will be okay with that. Let them reduce the setback, 0 setback between the two structures. And also fire department mentioned that the fire pad or any like a gas pads are not allowed under those kind of gazebo or pergola area. And also the building department said if zoning department, if there's not no code violation for the zoning building department, they are okay to let this kind of CUP reduce the 6 feet setback between each structure. But the applicant mentioned from the last meeting, they say for any the structure higher than 8 foot, they want to reduce increase the 5 feet setback from the property line, but reduce the setback between the structures. But any structure lower than 8 feet, they still can keep that minimum 3 feet required. And building departments say if anything that less than 3, keep the 3 feet minimum setback required, still need to follow the firewall standard. That's kind of building code for the safety. That's why the building department want to keep these points. So
Sorry, Maverick, can
Yeah.
you just because so my brain is wrapping around this. So if the structure is 8 feet, is that what we're saying? If the structure is higher than 8 feet,
Yep,
the setback
will increase to 5 feet.
to 5 feet.
Yeah.
What and in today's city standards is 3 feet.
Yes.
Okay, so they're okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. don't know what that was.
So the update summarize, now this applicant only gonna apply for the gazebo and pergola looking open air structures. And shed, any enclosed accessory building are not included. They're totally removed from their narrative. And the proposed thinking, you can see the chat on the right side is like a city standard, the minimum 3 feet setback from the side and rear yard for the property line. And now the proposal still keep the same from the last meeting with discussion. The minimum will be 5 foot setback from the side and rear yard. But the change is like the minimum 6 distance between the property will be no setback after this CUP. Yeah, and Commissioner also asked about like the fairness to other R18 or not. So I do some research. Most of the Giverny lots, they're smaller than the regular R18 standard lot size. The zoning code required the minimum R18 lot size is 8,000 square foot. But in the most of the Giverny area, without those kind of customer giant lots, the average is around like a 5,000 to 6,000. So they are way smaller than the regulars one. So I think for like, give them this kind of approval is kind of like a fair to them, but not gonna export to all the R18 standard, not just for them because of their lots.
So one of my big concerns is the fact that we're allowing something for, just because their lots are smaller. And I don't know the lot sizes of all the lots in Cottonwood Heights. And are there ones that are smaller? And then they will come, those residents, would this be a precedent we're setting that, okay, if your lot is smaller, you can come in and you can have a different setback? That's my concern, is because we're getting away from having a standard.
Yeah. So when I do this kind of review, I just kind of check with our director and see if he thinks this is kind of good reason for now. And our director saying, yeah, since their lot size is smaller and they still need to follow like a lot coverage and the rear yard 25% things. So they think like that then to reduce the setback is kind of reasonable things.
I'll still go back though to my question about others that have smaller lots than I don't know, the average, if you will, and they want to have things closer than what city standards are. I mean, the logic, if we're using the logic of it's a smaller lot size, so therefore your setbacks can be different, that we have other applicants who come in and say, well, my lot size is smaller, so I want a different set of setbacks. I think we got to make sure it's not a slippery slope that we're going down. That's my concern.
Do you have any comments?
I was just going to say that I think it's a good consideration because you would be setting precedent. Again, is this PUD zone, or this is
PUD.
it's a PUD, so there are some give and takes there as well.
True. That is, I mean, that's,
But it's a good concern to consider and to discuss whether or not you want to.
right. Okay. Thank you.
So for the staff recommendation, like according to all the review and other departments, fire and building department, they're concerned, I think we recommend this list can just approve for this with no other condition, no additional edits. Yep.
Thanks, Maverick.
Yeah.
Well, I've said my piece.
So I have a question. If we're going to make an exception for pergolas and open air structures, is there any reason why we can't do that? Just change the code and make it available to everybody in the city? If fire and building don't have any heartburn with this on smaller lots, I mean, in essence, it sounds like we're saying it's okay to change the code. That, you know, that to me, the concerns for why we put the code there in the first place on this issue, that in smaller lots, it seems like we would be more likely to enforce the rules, not less likely to enforce the rules. So, but because just public good stuff. So if we've come to the conclusion that pergolas and open air structures with these guardrails are safe, with decreased, you know, based on these conditions, maybe we need to revisit it for the whole city.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point.
I'm not inclined to give them exceptional treatment.
Yeah,
That's
I-
my bottom line. If we feel like this is, there's an exception because of these open air structures, I think it needs to be available just for the sake of protecting the city. This is just really, to me, the liability that if we're going to do this on some very, very expensive property with houses that are joining each other so close, and we feel like we don't have any heartburn with that there, we should be okay with it throughout the city from my standpoint.
It's a great point. I agree with you.
Can I speak here? Am I
Oh,
live?
yes, go ahead.
I just want to echo exactly what Dan said. That's my feeling exactly. That if there is no problem with these structures being that close, then rather than granting it just to this select group of homes, we ought to make a blanket grant of that idea to all of the R zones in the city. Dan's point was right on my thinking exactly. There's no reason why you would create an exception to the rule to create small lots and then an exception again to create smaller setbacks or different setbacks. You'd be much better served to just say this, there's no problem with this idea. It should be a citywide, the citywide way of doing it.
Commissioner Paulson has a comment, I think. Then I'll say something.
I guess it's more of a question than a comment. On page 4 of the very last part of what we got, under modified accessory building standards, it's way at the back. It's past the pictures.
Oh.
Just, it says page 4, but the others are like 2, 3 or whatever. There's this little illustration of an overhang and all. So, this would be for the pergolas and the gazebos. It says that under the R18, the posts have to be 5 feet from the property line. And the proposal is that they be changed to 3 feet, which is fine, except nobody has addressed the change in the roof structure overhang because that still stays at 36 inches. And so if you move those posts to 3 feet, then you can have the overhang where the drip line is exactly on the property line. And if you go under the R18 standards, it's 5 feet back, it's the 36, then you have a 2-foot difference. And so if you either have to change or alter the roof structure so that it can't be 36 inches, it'd have to be 12 or 24, pick a number. But it can't, I don't think that we ought to be leaving it the way it is. Otherwise, the drip's going to be right, or the drip line is going to be right on the property line, and it doesn't occur anywhere. Codes that I'm aware of. So if we're going to change that setback to 3 feet, then we've got to address some other issues.
I have a couple of questions, if I may. What happens if we don't concur with this request? How does that leave the HOA? And then also, how did this all come about? Did the developer builder just ignore the building standards,
I'm sorry.
or do we know?
So I mean, there are many ways that illegal structures come about in Cottonwood Heights, and some of them may have existed even predating the city. And that's really not our purview in terms of how, nor do we have the ability to grant any form of leniency if
I
the
understand.
current property owner, through no fault of their own, the structure was built, whether it was by the developer, their builder, the first homeowner, that person should have gone through the process, and whether they did or didn't is really not incumbent upon us to be the enforcing. But likely there is some story behind how these structures, I mean, based on the residents' comments last time. So I do, to your point, I think there are people that, they inherited this, and the fact that it's an illegal structure is frustrating for sure.
Isn't this a relatively new development, though?
Yes,
So the standards were in place.
correct.
So what, if we don't concur, what?
They're bound by current Cottonwood Heights standards.
Okay, which means what?
Which means code enforcement will do
enforcement
what
could-
they would do what they do.
They
Yeah,
could.
I mean, there
What I
are literally hundreds of structures in Cottonwood Heights that code enforcement does not have the bandwidth to get everything all the time.
Yeah.
But if they have reason to be there, when code enforcement is there, they will enforce the code. So, if neighbors are calling, unfortunately, sometimes that's been the trigger in the past. Yeah. So if they become aware and code enforcement becomes aware of it, they will enforce the code.
Which could put a burden on.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Got another question. My other question is if we change this setback, we haven't addressed for sheds, pools.
Right, and that's out of
That's-
scope. Yeah, I mean, we're
Well, no,
just
but
talking about
what I'm
open
saying
air.
is if you're going to change the code for R18 or this
But you can
situation-
but you can differentiate by building type, by open air versus shed, closed walls, and we're simply talking about.
Well, I realize
pergolas
for
and
this, but
open air.
we've talked about changing the code for the city to meet this criteria for this PUD. And make,
For only open air, no sheds.
I'm
yeah.
just curious, we're changing that setback.
We're not changing anything. I think we're talking about it, and I agree with Commissioner Mills and Commissioner Shelton that it makes the most sense that if this is okay, it should be okay citywide for pergolas and open air structures.
And if it's not okay, will that require that some of the homeowners move their structures or bring their structures?
That is not for our
That's-
purview.
yeah,
That's for
that's
code
up to
enforcement to
enforcement.
deal with.
Yeah.
But it could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to consider that. My understanding is that when people bought these properties and built on them, they did receive building permits and go through the proper channels, as I recall from a previous discussion.
So any structure less than 200 square feet does not require a building permit, but it still has to comply with code. So pergolas are typically under that limit. The homes had to get the permits, of course, but
Sure.
pergolas and things that were added on afterwards wouldn't necessarily have required a building permit.
So this would not require, if we don't change this, it would not require that people tear down permanent buildings. A pergola, I would
That-
consider not a permanent.
That would be up to code enforcement action. So they would be,
It could.
if they were out there and they cited them for it, then that could result in having to remove these structures. Because they're not currently legal or approved. So the city has not approved these.
That brings me to yet another question.
Go ahead.
Okay, If you
Go ahead,
look
your
at the
microphone.
examples that we were given, oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Hmm,
I want to miss
I'm-
something.
Well, I'm rarely not heard. It says one of the fourth picture we have, it says detached open air pergola with bar seating and a gas barbecue. So that obviously is fire codes or the fire department says no.
That
Well,
was one of my questions also.
So
because
then
it's-
my question goes to what we just kind of talked about is when something or someone is out of compliance, whose responsibility is it to say, oh, gee, I've got a gas barbecue in my backyard, I get to rip it out? Or if nobody says anything, it's just out of compliance?
It's up to code enforcement.
Okay, well, then how would code enforcement know that if it hadn't burned down? Are they going to go through everybody's backyard?
They wouldn't, or if someone were to maybe complain or something, or if code enforcement happened to be there for some other reason and they see a violation of code. I mean, there's ways it could happen, but what the there's no action required on the part of the homeowner based on what we do tonight.
So basically,
Or
what
if-
we do tonight has no teeth.
That's not true.
No, no,
That's not true. Just the opposite, to be honest.
So unless somebody complains.
So if we had 100 people doing code enforcement, Dan, that combed the 30,000 homes, the 30,000 residents, then absolutely they could find everything. But that requires a significant amount of budget. So within the limitations of what the staff can do, they're in the process of trying to enforce the code every time they become aware. So we will revisit this many times as a planning commission, that if there's a non-conforming structure that we have to deal with, and sometimes we've dealt with structures that have been there for decades, but that doesn't make it legal. So the fact that it existed and that, we've had electrical, wires going out to properties and things that are just much more egregious than this. And, the same question has been asked, why now? Why now?
So then this would just increase the burden of whoever's in code enforcement.
No, the code enforcement burden, if you will, remains the same. It's still their job to enforce code when they're aware of a code violation.
Well, then,
The code exists regardless of what we do tonight, this code exists.
okay, well, somewhere in the reading, it says words to the effect that if we would not pass this or pass it, whatever, that if somebody's out of compliance, then they would have to remove that structure.
If that's
That's
what
correct.
if that's what they are told by code enforcement, yes.
Okay, so I guess that's my real question then is if nobody makes any complaint and code enforcement's never aware of it, then nothing ever happens.
That's true. And
That's
that's
correct.
true with any code. I mean, that's true with weeds that are growing or whatever it might be, that if code enforcement is not aware of it, or no one complains about it, you're right. I mean, things stay in a non-compliant way.
Okay.
This goes to illegal Airbnbs. This goes to flammables in parts of people's houses that are inappropriate. All those are code violations. And if code enforcement becomes aware of them, then they will take action. So
If I'm hearing correctly, and we're not voting yet, but the thought is, I don't know how everyone feels about this, but that if this is okay for this PUD, then it should be okay for the city. And if that's the direction we're taking, I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm just what would be next steps? If in terms of we'd need to rewrite the code, come back, notice it, it would have to be noticed and then discussed at another, would it come to planning commission or would it go right to council? City
So,
council?
yeah, you have two options. You could, if you're okay with it, you could pass this so that it's effective for this PUD. And then we could look at having staff look at a text amendment, which would go through the whole process, which would come before planning commission for a recommendation for the city council. Or you could table this or deny this and then go that process, but then that puts this in pushed out until that text amendment's done as well. So you can kind of go both ways.
would that text and amendment be initiated by us, Jared, or that be initiated by the city council?
It would be at the city council direction, but
Okay.
we could bring that before
Okay.
them and say, hey, the planning commission would like us, if you wanted to, so say, if you're okay with this, you could pass this tonight and then say with a recommendation that staff goes back and requests that city council pursue a text amendment on this.
But if city council did not want to do that, then
Then
And-
it's not.
Status quo.
then we have to think about that, because if we approve this for this PUD and then city council does not want to do a tax amendment, then we're doing an
concur.
exception, and that's,
I think from a process standpoint, I would rather start with a text amendment rather than create an exception for which we then make a rule.
I agree with that.
okay, well, any other thoughts on this one before we
either way, if we are going to move ahead and say that you can put the posts within 3 feet and change that, we need to address the overhang.
So let's talk about that again, because I was looking at this picture and this overhang runs off into the backyard. So what is the concern?
The concern is it says the roof of the structure may overhang posts up to 36 inches. The problem is that was designed for the 5-foot setback, although it's not addressed in anything that we've talked about so far. So my point really is that if we're going to move it 3 feet, if we leave that alone, then the drip line will be right on the property line, and that ought not to be. So then we need to address that the overhang can't be 36 inches. It's got to be somewhat less. I'd say by at least a foot, maybe more. But we ought to come up with a figure that makes it so that when snow comes off the roof and that, it's not taking down somebody's fence, if that's what it is. I mean,
Right, but I'm sorry, this
Well, the
picture
pic-
shows it going into the rear yard.
yes, but this picture cuts it off here,
Right,
which is where it should be for the 5-foot here. But the wording up here says the roof of the structure may overhang the post by up to 36 inches. That isn't changed if we change it to a 3-foot setback. And
From the
so
property line.
that setback, that would say that the overhang can then be right on the property line. That's what it says. So we ought to change that specification if we're going to say that a 3-foot setback is good. At least that would be my thought.
I think those details are really best served by, staff doing the deep dive, because I think you're right, Dan, some unintended consequences exist there, the way it's written, and just seeing if there are other places from housekeeping, if we're going to make an exception to just make sure that overhang where it lands onto the property line. That, you make a good point. I think.
yeah, no, that is
So
it's
then
a
if-
good point.
But when would that be taken care of if we pass?
It would
don't
have to
that?
be, I would say that it would have to be in part of the revised text that we're discussing for the code, that's saying that however we word it, that runoff from the overhang or the cannot go into your neighbor's yard. I don't know how you say that, but
If we were to approve this, we could approve it with that recommendation to consider that change.
that could be a condition if the motion is to approve, that could be a condition. Yes.
Just to be clear, though, I think some of us are of a mind to deny this in favor of a later text amendment.
Right. I'm saying though that if someone were to make a motion to approve, that could be what
So-
they're saying.
Right.
Any other thoughts on this one?
No.
Commissioner Shelton?
Well, maybe just one thing back to the earlier conversation. I've heard code enforcement compared to the issuing of speeding tickets, and it was a concept that made it a little easier for me to accept. We don't give everyone who speeds a speeding ticket. We don't even have the illusion that we try to give everyone who speeds a speeding ticket. We also don't change the law because lots of people speed to be the height of what people speed at. And I think the same is true of this type of code. We don't change the law to accommodate those who didn't obey it. We do what makes sense because it makes sense. And we realize that not everyone who violates the code gets a ticket. And you have to just be okay with that just the same way you are with speeding. So that's my only thought.
A good point. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, that wraps up discussion on this one. Jared, do you have maybe can we ask for some updates on things or?
Yeah, anything specific, or you just want me to start talking?
Well, we could start with, how about Hillside Plaza?
Yeah, town center.
Yeah,
Town
Town
Center, I should
Center,
call it, sorry.
Hillside Plaza, we actually just signed the LOI with our development partner, so now we'll be entering the development agreement phase of these negotiations, and that's kind of when you'll see more coming out in the public, outreach and everything as we start to get into design and the details of everything, but we're pretty excited. We spent about the last 4 weeks, I think, or maybe more, going through the letter of intent to try to narrow down those terms of where we're going to be, and I think we're in a really good place with them, so hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months, this fall, we'll have some stuff that we can share and put out there as far as design and engineering and just site layout and everything goes. That's really, we've issued 20 million, we've sold $20 million of the bond and issued that so that we could pay off the sales tax bond that we had to purchase the property. And the rest of that is reserved currently for tenant relocation and additional property acquisition. So moving forward, it's a lot of work. Slow for some people, but it's actually moving pretty quick for government and for land sales. So
That's
But
good to put it
does
into
feel slow.
perspective.
We're looking at hopefully having demolition. We were hoping for demolition to start later this fall, but I'm guessing probably next spring is when you'll start seeing dirt moved, and is our goal. So
Any progress in the apartments to the north?
The Wasatch one?
Not Wasatch, the ones north of the property,
I can't remember their name.
attached.
Across Fort Union from there, behind the daycare.
Oh, Hillrise?
Yeah, behind, next to
Hillrise,
Hillrise,
those parts.
adjacent to Hillrise.
We haven't seen a new submittal, have we?
Oh, that's so funny. The Dakota,
Dakota Pacific.
yeah, Dakota
Yeah, yeah,
Pacific.
that's right.
yeah.
I'm trying to remember
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nothing new has
Nothing
come
yet.
in yet. Yeah.
Okay.
You do have a new community development, economic development director. He just happened to have a vacation pre-planned for this week. So he will be at your next meeting, but his name is Jim Spung. He worked for several years at Taylorsville, worked for a consultant before that, and I think he spent some time in North Salt Lake. Sorry, came from Vegas, but so he's got quite a bit of experience. I think he'll be a good addition. And then we've obviously, did we announce did you tell them about your promotion? We promoted Maverick into the Planner 3 position,
Congratulations. That's
and we
great.
are working on filling his position now. So,
Okay,
so hopefully we're fully staffed here in the next couple weeks
awesome.
for this group.
That's awesome. Look
So-
at, congratulations, Maverick. That's awesome.
Butlerville Days was great. I don't know how many of you got out there, but I was out there all 3 days at different times, and it wasn't too hot, which was nice. It was warm, but it wasn't too bad. It was not as hot as past years from what I understand. So I had a lot of great participation. It was my first time, so it was a great event to kind of see and watch. And so
Any update on the water project on Fort Union? Are they on schedule, behind, ahead?
I think they're behind.
Yeah.
But we also, so the council did actually, speaking of that, did allocate some funding to go ahead and do some further improvements past that project to help the roadway be a little, since they're out there anyway, we got a change order, or we were able to tag on to that contract and get them to do some additional work. So they might be out there a little longer because of us, but to finish some road and sidewalk and curb and gutter stuff.
Will they curb and gutter on the north side?
I don't think the north. I think
Okay.
yeah,
You're getting my hopes up.
I know. We'll work on that one day, right?
For home business stuff.
Any information about the gravel pit project? I've noticed there are some changes going on up there.
On the Rockworth project.
Yes,
That's the one going
that's
on.
the north. Yeah.
Yeah, so they got their building permit in. Do you know where that's at?
Yes, they finished the first review for all the departments, and Public Works City Engineer and the zoning have some corrections. Basically, now they only passed the fire department's review, and other department all have some concern. They still work at some building department minors change it, but we're just waiting for their resubmittal. Yeah, for the second reviews. But they keep kind of send update information, ask question basically every week, so we know they still moved on for that project. I just haven't get their second submittal yet.
Thank you. I'm sorry, was not able to attend city council last night. And I believe that Fort Union property was on Was it on the agenda for review?
Yeah, it was, but Adam Nash and I had been talking and he hadn't gotten me the material that was needed and he was going to be out of town. So he asked that got continued to the 19th and it did.
Okay,
So it'll be on the 19th.
on the
agenda
19th.
again.
Okay,
He was out
okay.
of town this week, so.
okay.
Trying to think what else. There's the park at Canyon. Well, it's always called Dover Hill, but it's not Dover Hill Park. So they did settle on 3. We had about 54 submissions for names for that park. We opened it up and had people email in some names, and so they narrowed it down to 3 names. They talked about they had Jim Peters come in and kind of give a little history of the area, and then they narrowed it down to Brighton Point, Summer Hill, or Dover Hill. And so we're going to put a form out online and kind of advertise that, and there'll be an article in the journal about it, and kind of push that out and get some feedback before mid-September when we'll put it back on the agenda for a kind of a final, hopefully a final choosing of a name.
Jared, where's his park?
This is at, let me pull it up. It's
Yeah.
just off of Wasatch, but you don't get there from Wasatch.
You get there from the four-way stop by the Smiths and it's
By-
northeast of that
Green View.
quadrant.
Off of Bengal Boulevard.
Visible
So at
from,
the intersection, you go north
correct,
Yeah.
towards the
Mhm.
goalie?
yes.
Yeah. And then turn right
So
on.
there's a
Right.
new Ivory
Some-
development right there, and it's part of that development as well. There used to
Okay.
be an old church there with a softball field, and so.
That's right. That's right. You can see it from the
Yeah.
dog park.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, it's right
All right.
across from the dog
Okay.
park. If you look
Good.
down from the parking lot, you can see it there,
Thank you.
so.
Are you happy with I mean, Bowery and trees and what kind of what we're left with after all what kind of shape is it in, or is it going to be just basically starting from scratch?
I've got to walk through with engineering and actually with Conwood Heights Parks and Rec District too, because that'll go on to our exhibit to help maintain. So we're going to walk through it next week and kind of see where it's at. And we haven't accepted it yet, so there's still work to be done, but we'll go out and take a look and kind of just walk through and discuss it a little bit. So,
The houses turned out okay.
yeah, I mean, I still get some complaints, but
I drove there last week and I was pleased with where we landed despite a lot of frustration, including from Ivory, just for the sake of the public. That I know there are some people that were very sensitive to where things landed, but Ivory didn't get everything that they wanted by quite a long shot, actually.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and the
I think
homes
it
are
was a
filling up,
win.
and there's
Win-win.
some younger families in there too, which is nice to see. I met a couple in the administrative hearing today that came in to increase their fence height a little bit, and they moved into one of the homes there, and I think they said they've got 3 little ones, so it's kind of nice to see.
great. That area traditionally, I mean, that was kind of an anchor area
Mhm.
40 years ago, just one of the more sought after areas in the whole valley to live. So that seems like a great addition to the area.
That's kind of why they picked Brighton Point, I think, as well, because that reflects the history of that area as well. So,
Jim's a good one to speak to that. I think he was there when they moved their first shovel of dirt. So
sorry, there's just been a lot going on, and I've been running back and forth. I can't in my mind, and I just got back from vacation Monday, so I'm hitting back into things.
any information with UDOT as far as Wasatch Boulevard or interchange of Fort Union and Wasatch?
Nothing solid. We've met with UDOT and kind of expressed some interest in things and had some discussions with them, and there's been some commitments here and then, but nothing in paper and solid in writing. But we were talking to them, expressing our desires and our concerns and trying to figure out ways we can address things now, especially before the winter. But here we are in August, so we'll see.
How about the transit hub in the gravel pit?
So they're still working on that. They're still working with the property owner. Nothing solid there yet either. I think they've gotten some of the studies from them now, but I haven't heard of a solid decision on that yet. Yeah, I wish I had better news.
Oh.
But it keeps going back and forth, and we haven't seen any submittals from them either recently. I mean, I met with them when I first got here, and I think one time after that, and just kind of conceptual. Everything I saw was very conceptual, so no solid. I don't think they're close to submitting anything at this point. Do you know where the conditional use is speaking of that, for the old mill? Are we still waiting for submittals from them?
Yeah, we're still waiting for this.
So they did submit a conditional use for the demolition of the old mill, which has to go through that year-long process, but we still have not gotten a complete application either.
Mm.
I know people are always interested in that, so.
So the year clock has not
Has
started.
not started yet.
Because I've had no update things that people keep calling, we keep contact with like a applicants, hey, we need this one, but they basically says no respond or very slow to provide their completed projects.
Great updates.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of all these things because
Welcome back from
my
vacation.
mind's just going and I'm trying to remember other things, but
Check the CUP home client, home business with the client. It's gonna be keep the planning commission or still staff level.
oh, do you want me to?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can talk about that. Maverick has a question actually on procedure.
Yeah,
Yes.
so now we have like a kind of an admin hearing like a Wednesday noon, just to review those kind of short-term rental, WOHI extension, also include the home business with a client. But we just reviewed the code. Sounds like the home business with client is kind of like a planning commission need to review it. But I know in the past, like, is always Mike just help with review those things. So we just want to check if that's still kind of like a staff level, like a CED director or anybody get assigned for the hearing officer can take care of those case, or now the planning commissioner want to take care of those kind of home business client case.
So you're talking about when there's a request for conditional use,
Yeah.
home business with clients,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
And right, historically, those did not come to the planning commission. The director handled them. That was our,
Well, I think it was depending on the type of business. So if it was simply just that there were, I think it was more the nature of the business. Yeah, and my memory is based on if it was a conditional use, we were seeing it. So.
Yeah, most of the case we didn't know, just like a home therapy, massage, or like a home baker, those kind of small business. They probably just have a 1 or 2 client like per day, not even the whole week, probably not over 10 customer come to their house. And their project is very simple, but since the code is mentioned about like usually those cases go to the planning commission. So Arnie director just want to double check if this is still commissioner want to be a staff level or want to come back to planning commission's review.
Commissioner Mills, you're right. There was something in terms of what the business was and how many customers or people there were, that was the criteria we put in place. And I apologize, I do not remember what that criteria was. And and jump in, other commissioners, my thought would be, let's bring them to the planning commission, especially as the new director is coming up to speed on everything. I'm sure he's aware of the rules and that kind of thing, but it might be good to just have those come here and we could reevaluate
Okay.
at a later date. Fellow commissioners, how do you feel about that?
Love that.
I think that's our role. It might increase our workload a little bit in these meetings, but
Right.
I think if people are making exceptions to the norm in their neighborhood, it probably ought to be.
Right, and we had said that, and it was a while ago, that the director could review those during like an administrative hearing and based on the size of the business, et cetera, and they wouldn't come to planning commission. But I think maybe going forward, given changes that have happened, let's go ahead and have those come to planning commission, is what it's
Okay.
sounding like I'm hearing from fellow commissioners. Yes, I see lots of, Commissioner Shelton, you okay with that? Okay. Silence. Yes. Okay. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. And one thing, just like, I don't know in the past if the zoning department invite the commissioner to attend the APA's Utah's conference, but zoning want to start invite the commissioner if any one of commissioner interested in joining like those kind of annual APA Utah's conference.
I think we have traditionally been told, I don't know about which conferences you're referencing, but yes, I think it would be great if you could let us know when they happen.
Yeah.
And I know there are those of us who have attended them in the past, and I have found them to be very valuable. So
Okay, I'll start send a calendar invitation and see how many commissioner want to.
that'd be great. If it's appropriate that we attend, if it's how, the different criteria of who attends these things, but.
Yeah.
That would be great. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Just so you're aware, the fall conference is October 9th and 10th at the Depot, the Megaplex Theaters there. So
Okay.
this year. And then they usually do a spring conference, which would require travel down to usually southern Utah or somewhere in northern.
Okay.
So they try to do one in kind of this area and then do the spring conference a little further away. So
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be great to know. And if people want or can attend,
Okay, yeah.
that'd be great. And then I think too, when we do attend those, that it'd be great if we bring a mini little synopsis of what we learned or to share with the rest of the commissioners that couldn't.
Yeah. I
attend.
know there's always a section that some planner from different city, they prepared a section, specific section for the commissioner.
Oh.
As always ask, they always ask, is any commissioner here to join the meeting? So I know they provide some training and each, I don't know, fall is probably different, spring they also provide different training, but they have a specific section for commissioner.
Oh, that's great. And speaking of training, which I haven't talked about in a while, we are required to do training as commissioners. We're in August and I think we have to have it done by the end of the year. So that could count towards that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not opposed to training. I did take advantage of the earlier invitation to do that. I don't know how that's ever recorded or who's
I
tracking
think
it.
you're on the honor system.
Oh, that's scary. No, I'm okay with that.
And I think we should report it to staff that we have done that because I think then they need to track it so that we're
Yeah.
following the,
I think that'd be good if you want to send us an email and we'll create a system to track that so we can.
maybe follow up and send it to Maverick.
Yeah, you can
Send it,
send it to me, I'll
resend
create
it.
the file to track it and just for the list and the record.
Perfect. Anything else before we
Motion to adjourn.
have a motion by Commissioner Mills,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner